Welcome to the Living Out Loud show with Michelle Wadleigh and Alan Vukas. In each episode, we will explore practical spirituality through inspiring and enlightening conversations. Be a part of our weekly conversation with a rotating cast of speakers, teachers, and authors as we uncover and share spiritual, mental, and emotional tools to help you live your authentic life out loud now.
Well, welcome everyone to the Living Out Loud show. And I am Michelle Wadleigh, one of the co-hosts, and this is not Alan Vukas. Alan is off to some exotic place doing something wonderful. And so I'm here to have a great time with a colleague and a friend, and even though a bi-coastal friend. And I would like to introduce you to Reverend David Robinson. So, David, you could just say hello real quick. And
hello, real quick.
This is our 22nd podcast, and today's title is "Got Me Hypnotized." As our listeners know, or if you're new to the station, we are following along with the Centers for Spiritual Living global themes. And the beautiful thing is every once a month, we invite in the author of that month's themes. So for this month, it is David Robinson. But we're here to have an enlightening conversation, engaging and fun about spirituality and ways that you can empower yourself to live your life out loud. And I know for one, and Alan and I, we're a little self-indulgent when we're here, David, because we can't stop having fun. And because this has been an empowering 20 seconds, so it's about 5 months. In the 5 months, these themes have morphed and followed each other with such beauty. And every time we talk about it, sometimes we're laughing, sometimes he and I are crying, but I'm growing. So I feel like this has been hands down one of the most successful years of global themes that the centers has ever put forward. What do you think about that? What's your reaction to what they've been doing?
I think it's a wonderful, I'm as a co-chair, I was there at the inception, and there's a group of us that comes together in visions, to create that. Alan was part of that also. Mm-hmm. And this wonderful theme of not hiding in the shadows anymore, but coming out fully and being authentically who we are. Authenticity is one of my core values. And so to be out and fully alive and fully present. And I like to say to people, living out loud doesn't mean living loudly. It means living fully.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so it's not about necessarily making a bunch of noise just to make noise, but
right.
to allow that full heart, that full spirit to express through us. So for me, that's been also an inspiration to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The expression I used to use in some work that I was doing was to live life fully expressed.
Yes,
that's kind of how I rounded out that statement. But the order, and I don't know if you guys, and I forgot that you were the co-chair for this until you just reminded me. So I don't know if you purposely placed the order the way you did, but the building blocks, oh my Lord, have mercy, to come from, vulnerability to authenticity, the self-care, and the realizations, because what you just said, you said that authenticity is a value of yours, mm-hmm. right? Is that the word you used?
Yeah, core value of mine, yes.
Okay. So here's the thing. Here, this is where I start getting weepy right away, because I touch things that are very real. I realized in all these conversations that I still lie a lot. Now, I don't lie purposely to lie, but I've been lying to myself. And I talk to my students, I talk to my congregation about our addictions to being liked, our addictions to being nice. And I realized that we, specifically the ministers of this movement, or the people who think they have to be nice because they're called to be nice, mm-hmm. it makes us swallow many things. Mm-hmm. And I have been getting in touch with all the little places in my life where I don't really say what I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
where somebody disappoints me, they don't keep up their commitment, they break their pledging commitment, or they break their volunteer commitment, or whatever, all those little things. And I put on a face like, okay, I might hold them accountable in a loving way,
Mm-hmm.
but inside I'm
Mm-hmm.
having a rough time with that.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this series, I have been getting in touch with it. And for the first time, about a month ago, in talking to someone, I love her, but I was able to say, I'm really a little pissed off. And she was taken back. I went, yeah, I got to tell you, it's the truth. So I thank you. I thank you and the team for producing a series that, if those who are willing to follow it, and I'm hoping our podcasts are helpful, because we try to bring in the real pragmatic side of all of it. And I hope that people are having the same kind of realizations and times of freedom for themselves. So anyway, so the main focus for today, but you are here as the creator, was Got Me Hypnotized. So
Yes.
let's start there, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can tell
Mm-hmm.
me tell us more about the program.
Well, I'm going to take one step up from there first of all. So the whole month theme is called Speaking Truth to Circumstance. And it's a play, of course, on speaking truth to power, but we don't need to speak truth to power if we understand that power, capital P power, is the divine, is spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And spirit is and lives in and as truth. And so we don't need to speak truth to that. What we need to speak capital T truth to is control. And on the human level, many of us can confuse power with control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's people who are trying to control us, circumstances, organizations, whatever, that are trying to control us, that hold us in place. And so it's time to speak truth, whether it's to the circumstances of my own life created by my own consciousness, or to organizations or to people that are trying to control us in some way. And the thing about control is it's actually a cover for feeling powerless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When people realize that, it's an insecure response to feeling powerless.
Yeah,
So
because it's funny, because I think of control really as a bit of an illusion.
it
to be
is.
honest. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
And there could be a long discussion, really hot kind of discussion about that, especially since it's in our Declaration of Principles.
Yes.
And every time I read that, I go, I don't know.
Yeah. And I go for what I'm pretty sure he meant rather than necessarily the word he used, because at that time that word had, I think, a little different context than what it does these days. So, that word was almost 100 years ago. So
yeah, and I'm sure that word, I guess, in saying control at that point, it meant you have responsibility, you have an option, you don't have to be helpless.
Yes.
But now we have it differently. So yeah,
yes.
I agree with you.
Yes. So that was the original idea of that, and then of course I set up that all 5 weeks as each of us did as a kind of an arc of ideas. So we started off with Monsters Incorporated, to look at the monsters in our life and make them our friends. I pulled that from the movie title, the Disney movie.
Yeah.
And so Got Me Hypnotized is actually an old Fleetwood Mac song written by Bob Welch. And it was really funny because my music director sends out the music we're gonna play on Tuesdays, and so I saw this song "Hypnotized" by Bob Welch, and I went, "Did I ask you to play that?" And he goes, "No, you knew the song and thought it might be appropriate." And so I had to let him know, well, that's the song that inspired the title of the talk, and so
great.
we just played Fleetwood Mac this past Sunday at our show.
I love the serendipity. Love the serendipity.
I love it. He's a very intuitive person and very lovely to work with.
Fantastic.
So Got Me Hypnotized is looking at and kind of what you talked about, the paradigms that we live inside of, the dream, if you will, that we live inside of. Don Miguel Ruiz calls it the mitote, or the domestication that we live inside of, and we're so wrapped up in it that we don't even know it's a dream. It's like you just talked about, the dream of having to be nice. You know,
Mhm.
I think
Right.
women, girls especially, are raised, at least traditionally they were. Maybe it's changed a little bit, but in my generation, your generation, and before, girls were raised, you have to be nice, and ministers are supposed to be kind and
Nice.
nice.
Kind. Yes.
you
Yes.
know and I laugh because so this coming Sunday's talk is called Standing on Shiva, which talks about Kali in the Hindu tradition. And Kali was in the middle of a big battle with the gods and the demons, was sprung out of the third eye of Durga, who's the goddess of compassion. And we sometimes have this idea that compassion is supposed to be this nicey nice, warm, sort of thing. And it's just like, no, Durga is the mothering and compassion, goddess, if you will. And, if you ever cross a mother cub, a bear, ever cross a mother bear's cubs, you know perfectly well that, she's not giving you compassion.
Right.
And
That's
so
right.
it's the same thing with, there's times where the compassionate thing to do is to deal with the issue. So this past week was waking up from the hypnosis, and we all get hypnotized and none of us know it until we wake up. Michael Beckwith talks about that we're all asleep, and some of us are deep sleepers, kind of banging into things, and others of us are lighter sleepers who at least are aware that we're asleep, at least aware that we don't know what,
Mhm.
that we are aware that we don't know that we don't know.
Right. 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 Mhm.
And so it's that process of starting to wake up out of that hypnosis. I heard an interview with Tony Robbins years ago, where somebody asked him, because he was working with hypnosis, if it was easy to put people into a trance. And he said, no, that's easy. He says, the hard thing is to get them out of the trance they're already in.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And my original training was in hypnosis.
Mm.
So I'm very aware of the influences that we don't even realize that are influencing us.
Yes.
And I can't agree more that getting people to, and the way I try to phrase it, so I'm not in people's faces too much, the way I phrase it is question everything.
Yeah.
Question everything you think, everything you feel, question what you see, question the authorities, question the doctors, and talk about speaking truth to circumstance, question the diagnosis,
Yes.
right? Question it.
Uh-huh.
Because, and then in that way, you do start to free yourself to some degree,
Yes.
some degree.
Yes. So
Yeah.
just to play off that for a moment, I recently
Mhm.
got a diagnosis of diabetes, a few months ago. And, my first thought was, oh God, it was like, it ran in my family. So as I said, I was shocked, but
Mhm.
not surprised, and
Right.
so, but then I sat with it, and said, what is this really about in consciousness? And so
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of work, and I realized, I learned that diabetes is the cells of the body resisting the nutrition that the blood is carrying to them.
Mhm.
And in a normal person, a healthy person, what am I trying to say? Insulin, which the
Right.
body naturally generates, is the key that unlocks the cells to receive the nutrition. In
Right.
a person with diabetes, there's more resistance of the cells, so it takes more insulin being generated, which can be the
Mhm.
problem. But I began to realize it's like, oh, at the cellular level, I'm resisting my good.
Mm-hmm.
And that shifted everything for me, and so I could be able to open up. And that's been my meditation and prayer and practice, is opening at a deeper, deeper, deeper level to my good.
And so you haven't said this, but I want to make sure the audience hears it because I want to speak truth to circumstance. I want us not to be hypnotized to the degree that we think that things like these diagnoses are not irreversible. They are.
They are.
They are. And so I'm going to know that for you, David,
Yes.
and for anyone out there who might be relating to this. But what is required is that you the old nip it in the bud. Like
Mm-hmm. Yes.
that's, you have to catch it as quickly as possible, because a thought that is not caught is a seed. And once it's planted, it starts to grow, and it's more difficult to uproot something that's rooted than
Yes.
it is just a weed.
Yes.
So, and it sounds like you caught it on the early side.
Yes. And my numbers, dropped by over 4 points of my A1C level, within 3 months. And the doctor said, that's a phenomenal result,
Yes.
and yes, I changed my diet, and yes, I take a metformin medication, and I monitor my glucose levels. But it's
Mhm.
like, the first place I go for work is consciousness,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so
Beautiful,
letting that in. And one of the
beautiful.
things that reminded me of was so many of the earlier teachers of New Thought, Holmes and Goldsmith and Barker and all that, say to keep the thought of your health in mind, because if you don't, then the weeds that are floating around in the
Mhm,
consciousness is the
mhm.
hypnosis. We're bombarded with, it's flu season, it's cold season, you're going to
Oh,
get this,
man.
and you're going to age, and this is what's going to happen with age. I'm 72 years old, and most people think I'm 60 or late 50s in their interactions with me. And so,
And I would say you're 72 years alive,
yes, exactly.
not 72 years old.
Yes,
And I
yes,
know people try to counter that with 72 years young, and I think
yeah,
sometimes that goes in our brain and goes, I think we fight that a little bit.
yeah,
But the truth is,
yes,
you are 72 years alive.
yes,
And I've been trying to, I have a soapbox I get on about that. No, only a couple people have adopted it, but it starts it starts when a baby's born.
hmm
You meet a new baby, 6 weeks alive, and you say, well, how old is she?
yeah,
Not very, you
not
know,
very, nope,
right. So, but I don't mind 66 years alive.
yeah,
And I really hope that somewhere it starts to catch so that
yeah.
we can undo, because that circumstance,
And
right?
that's the
That
hypnosis.
circumstance.
That's the hypnosis. This number
Yes.
means something. I remember when I was 40 years old, there was a woman in the office I was working at that was celebrating her 50th birthday, and she was not a good looking 50. And I don't mean that as a value of attractiveness. I just mean, she had lived hard for 50 years. And I heard a little voice in my brain go, "Oh, that's what 50 looks like." Unfortunately,
Ah,
I was in this teaching even then, and it's like I
mhm.
caught myself and went, "Cancel. No, that is not what I
Yeah,
want." And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I had friends at the time who were in their mid 70s who were doing, I used to be a hardcore cyclist, and they were doing this thing called Ramrod out here, which is the 156 miles, 10,000 feet of climbing around Mount Rainier ride in one day, and 76 years old, and they're doing this stuff. And I went, those are the people I'm going to look at for
Yes, yes,
what does
yes.
that age look like? And they were vibrant, alive, and healthy, so
Mhm.
it's creating different models also, and finding
Yeah,
different models to look at, rather than the hypnosis.
right.
And I look around at so many people who are in this, late 60s, early 70s age range today, and they're so much more vibrant and alive than our parents' generation was.
Yes,
My
yes.
dad was dead at 70,
Right, right,
and from complications of diabetes, and I just got diagnosed. And so it's like,
right. Mhm.
there's a whole different, and I think that living generally the overall level for our culture has raised of
Mhm,
what it
mhm.
means. And
Isn't that why we're having
even
trouble
looking
with
at
Social Security budget?
what, yeah.
We're we're outliving our Social Security
Yeah.
budget.
And so, but then consciousness also, the fact that, a lot of us practice consciousness, and that's becoming more prevalent in the mainstream,
Yes,
is
yes,
people are having different thoughts, which we know generates a different reality, different experience,
right.
different
I
result.
want to go back. I caught something you said, and I'm the catcher of things. So when Alan's, we do that for each other, because I'd like to make something clear. Because if in the audience there's a parent or a grandparent or someone who is influence of children,
Hmm.
that, because I think about, you said something about being a good girl or
Yeah.
something, and I knew you were teaching about that. So I'm very clear with my granddaughters. I don't walk around saying, "Oh, you're such a good girl."
Hmm.
I might say you're a smart girl. I say you're strong. I say you're powerful. And I say good job if they've done something they tried to do, like my
Hmm.
granddaughter with her step dancing. Irish step dancing. I say good job, but I
Hmm.
refuse to say good girl,
Yeah.
because I don't want to be part of that hypnosis.
Right.
So if anyone listening, pay attention to the language that you use, because whether you're saying it directly to someone or whether they're overhearing it, you are having influence. So I just, I want to catch that, because I think
Yes.
the more that we wake up, the more we wake up out of our hypnosis, the better we are for the planet.
Yes.
It just comes
And so
down.
that speaks to hypnosis, that I am what I do. I am my performance.
Right. That's right.
Instead of, if you do well at step dancing, for instance, you do well at step dancing, but that's not who you are. You are whole, perfect, and complete being. If you fall flat on your face at step dancing, you're still a
Right.
wonderful, whole, perfect, complete human being,
Yes.
spiritual being in human form. And so to separate out, how am I, how am I doing on this particular thing? Because I can improve that or choose to not care about it, but it doesn't associate me with me.
Right.
So as a
Right.
child, I
Mhm.
identified with, was I a smart kid or not? That was my identity.
You know, I have, and this is where I always announce true confessions. um, I still have temptation in my life. I still am tempted to confuse what I'm doing for my spiritual community with who I'm being for
Yeah.
my spiritual community. And I know that because even the other day I was, scheduling things for the fall and making sure things were in place. And I'm starting to look at my calendar get full. I went, oh, Michelle,
Hmm.
you're doing that again. You're
Yes.
doing it again where I think I have to perform to support them in a better way. And
Yes.
I guarantee you, our listeners, there are people that are also under the hypnosis of that. So I really appreciate that we're
Yeah.
bringing this out.
Yeah. A couple months ago, I took a 6-week sabbatical for the first time in my 12 years of ministry. And so and part of it was to just step back. When I'm doing my meditation in the morning, every once in a while, my mind will want to download, oh, this is for my talk this coming Sunday. And it's like, no, this is my meditation time. This is not my talk time. And so
Mm,
to separate that out, this is just for David,
mm-hmm.
not for David as the minister, David.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so, yeah, and when we're a minister, or there's many other jobs, if we're a doctor, if we're, whatever, there's so many ways we can get into it. Being a parent, so many ways we can get hooked into, I am this job. And
Yeah,
that's why people, when they hit retirement, are clueless and they have no idea what to do, or they get fired from their long-term job or laid off or, whatever. They have no idea what to do because they've identified so much with that
right,
performance
right,
that
right.
they've forgotten who they are.
And I don't know if it's just within metaphysical spiritual communities or if it's broader than that. But I remember when I was young and I looked at retirement and it looked deadly to me.
Mhm.
Deadly. Now I look at my friends, they're traveling. I have a congregant he's on a cruise for I don't know, 3 months or something like
Yeah.
ridiculous. And people who are going places and doing things and having
Mhm.
hobbies. And I'm like, wow, I want to retire.
Mhm. Yeah.
I want to retire to do my crafts and my fun and my hikes in the woods where I don't have to answer to anybody else. So now the idea of that looks much healthier than
Yes.
it did. You're right. So we have begun to shift that, and I hope it's not just in these kind of communities. I hope it's broader.
There's actually on TV right now, I think it's a beer commercial, but I could be wrong. But it's speaking to younger people. It says, take a morning to retire.
Uh,
They show them doing, golfing and enjoying a restaurant and sunbathing with older folks, who are retirement age. And it's like, no, take a moment, take a little moment for yourself to at least
yeah,
retire for a morning,
right.
So no, I think it's out there in a much
Yeah, good,
broader
good, good.
sense.
I know I have one unrealized dream that I'm recently getting in touch with, and I mentioned it now because you being out there on the West Coast, I don't know, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a trip by train that goes along the Rockies,
Yeah.
and I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to go on that train. I
Yeah.
want to sit and bask and take in the beauty because God, oceans are great, but I'm a mountain girl. I love the mountains. I love
When I was a
the
kid, my dad, after he retired, had always wanted to go across the country of Canada. So he drove up to Vancouver. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, drove to Vancouver and hopped the train, their equivalent of the Amtrak, I forget what it's called, that went all the way across the country from Vancouver to, I think, Nova Scotia, for 3 weeks or whatever it was.
Oh, how lovely. Oh my
And just gave himself that gift.
That's lovely.
You know, and
Yeah.
so
So
I thought that was wonderful.
yeah. So and again, too, for our listeners, what have you not allowed yourself to dream?
Yes.
Or what dream have you had and you squelch it thinking any of the thousands of reasons that you could possibly have, but reinvent or reinvigorate the dream.
Yes.
I think that's part of what keeps us vibrant too and alive and
Yes.
vital is
Yeah.
being willing to stay, in that dream state,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. But not the hypnotized state.
No, the conscious, a couple number of years ago in my community, we did a year theme of dreaming our reality
Uh-huh.
because the shamans referred to it, and
Yes.
and
The
it's
dream
not
come.
unlike visioning, but your dream is your conscious dream. Dream yourself into the reality that you want.
Yes.
So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So you tell us more about the month, if you will. Tell us more about the month of
July.
speaking truth to
Speaking
circumstance.
truth to circumstance, so we started off looking at Monsters Incorporated, and
Uh-huh.
oftentimes I'll use kind of more popular things to get that. And so, it's the Disney movie where the monsters eventually become friends of the kids, and they find out that,
One of
they're
my
using,
favorites.
yeah,
One
one
of
of
my
my favorite movies too.
favorite.
And so this little girl is not scared of Mike the monster, and instead calls him Kitty, and gets into their world. And so they have a belief that if they're touched by a human child, they'll die. And
Right.
so
That's right. That's
yeah. And so she dissolves that because she gives him a big hug, and it's like, wait, I didn't die. And eventually, they roll through, and the city that the monsters live in is powered by the screams of children. And eventually they find out that the laughter of children is actually more powerful and provides more power than the screams of children.
right.
And so it's a whole shift in that consciousness. And so can we look at what we view as the monsters in our lives, whether they're circumstances around us or whether they're people or organizations, and remember, they're God too. Every organization, I don't care if it's the IRS or the worst global, multinational corporation that you can think of, are made up of people.
Yeah.
And people are just simply God in form. And there may be people who are deeply asleep and banging into things, and yet there's still that spark of the divine within them. And so
Right.
as we start to take that apart, that solidness, the apparent solidness apart, and realize, no, there's a lot of space in there to work with. I remember years ago, I got in trouble with the IRS. It was just like, oh my God, the IRS,
Oh man.
and they at one time, took my entire savings account and checking account, all the money that I had, right after I gotten paid for doing an event. I was an events coordinator at the time, and so I called them up, and it's like I was in a panic. And I got this guy who was nice, friendly, helpful, put a hold so they wouldn't do that again. We worked out, process and plan. It took several years to get it all paid off, but it's like it was a human being, and it
Yeah.
wasn't just this,
Yes.
thing that it was so difficult to deal with.
So a term that we many of us who are coaches that use in our coaching, and then I use in my classes, my forgiveness classes, is it's not just what happens, but it's what we make it mean,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
that's the clue. It's not the event, it's the
Yes.
story you tell about
Exactly.
the event and the story you tell about yourself in
Yes.
reaction to the event.
Yes.
No.
Yes. And I've had to redefine meanings for a number of things in my life and what they
Mhm.
meant.
Mhm. Yes.
And so when
It's basic reframing is what it
it's
is.
basic reframing, yeah,
Yeah.
but oftentimes we need to do that
Yes.
because we
Yes.
got a story going and we've hypnotized ourselves into this
Yeah.
story.
So what was something in your life? What might be one of the most dramatic reframings, retelling of a story that you had to deal with in your life, David? Tell our
So
audience.
when I was 8 months old, my mother got sick with being pregnant with my younger sister, excuse me, and she put me into a nursery, an orphanage, basically, or orphanage nursery, Providence in Portland, Oregon. And I was there for 3 months, from 8 months to 11 months. And if you know anything about childhood development, that's the time when you're starting to bond, a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I was kicked out of the house, basically. And so I had a whole story that I had
Wow.
done something unknowable wrong that got me, kicked out. And I had abandonment issues and betrayal issues. And that's why I was joking with Alan when he was saying that he wasn't going to be here. It's like, and so I had to, so I held that for a long time. And my mom said that when I came home, I was, she put it, you were so angry. It was so cute, and it's like, no, that wasn't. And my mom had issues. I'm just going to, put that out there. So I'm not absolving her of all responsibility, but I had this story. Many years later, I was working with a practitioner who said, how much money did your mom spend to pay for that? Well, my mom grew up in the Depression. She was a tightwad with money. And I realized she didn't farm me off to her, sisters. She paid money to have me get professional care.
Right. Right.
And it was just like,
But that wasn't the story you told.
It was not the story I told myself.
Oh, I'm getting chills.
And I've had to work through I did something unknowable wrong.
Right.
To say, no, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And she didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing wrong done there.
She was caught in a circumstance doing the
circumstances.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And so that was a reframe for me of, oh my God, she spent money.
Wow.
To make sure that
what a brilliant practitioner to ask you that question, to spark that. That's great.
She still is. Yes.
Yeah. It's funny. So one time, I don't remember really how old I was. I was on we were not sure people, my family, we didn't have much money, and my family was not the healthiest of families. So we certainly didn't have a history of vacationing together and stuff. If we were lucky, we went for long drives in the car with my father. And so they sent me down the shore, as we say in New Jersey, we go down the shore.
Yes.
They sent me down the shore with the friends of my brother's girlfriend. And I'll never forget it. We were sitting out on the porch and we were eating. And I think I had been eating an apricot and I swallowed it. And I started to gag, but I couldn't say anything because I was gagging. It's always funny to me when someone's gagging. They say, are you choking? Well, if I can choke you, I can answer you, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I'm actually gagging and I can't breathe. And here's the thought that went through my mind. Boy, is this revealing. My mother's going to be mad at me if I die. Right? Of all the thoughts. And I caught it. And here I am, 66 years alive. And I still remember thinking that thought. And I can remember, then I remember the panic upon someone. And then someone else hit me on the back and it came up. And, but there I was. I thought my mother would be mad at me if I died.
It's amazing the things that go through our minds. So 2 years ago, I don't know how to swim. And so 2 years ago, I was with a friend up in Michigan. Her family has a house on Lake Superior up there. And there's a little river that runs behind the house. And I was out canoeing and, the whole stream was like 2 feet deep. You could see the bottom of it. And she's, my friend said, oh, it's like that almost the entire way. So I come back and this gust of wind comes up off of Lake Superior, flips me over and dumps me into the water in a place where it was more than 6 feet deep because I never touched bottom. The only place probably in that whole river. And I'm down there and I'm sitting there, it's like flailing around trying to get it. And all of a sudden it's just like, this is where it's going to end, and it's like, and I'm okay with this. I nearly drowned once in my teenage years and I knew it was peaceful. And so I said, and all of a sudden I went, I can't do this. So my friend's name is Buffy. And she was at the time the chair of our core council. And I said, I can't do this to Buffy. She'd have to bring my body back to the congregation and then they'd have to do a minister search. And then, all that,
how inconvenient.
It's amazing the things that go through your mind in that situation. And so
yes.
I remember I just sat there and I just went really anchored, God, it's like, and all of a sudden I'm starting to rise up. So in the water. And then I remembered I do know a little bit how to swim. So I got my arms and legs moving in at least the right direction. And obviously I'm still here to talk about it, but it's amazing the things that go through our minds. It's like, my mom's going to be upset or my core council president in the congregation will be upset if I let myself drown here, you know.
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
I mean, I say what a riot because
yeah,
I am very amused by us as humans.
yes,
We are interesting beings.
yes, we are.
And, of course, as a coach and what I do, with all my forgiveness work, I hear some really, I hear some heartbreaking stories. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
bringing this up because since we're talking about hypnosis, it is so critically important. If you're listening to this at any point, please understand that that hypnosis that David so beautifully has been speaking about, that we're not stuck. We don't have to be stuck by it, but you do have to wake up.
yes,
It does require you to wake up and
yes.
to find another option. That is a piece of reality that and you might not know what waking up looks like. So David, what I'd like to ask you, because Alan and I like to make things very pragmatic for people.
Hmm.
So give our audience a few things to do, because there is a doing to the being.
Hmm.
What are a few things they could do to jumpstart their waking up? What would you have them do?
So first, I want to say that I think that on one level, the entire journey of our life is a journey of awakening.
Okay.
Is waking up. Is waking up. And so the two practices that I suggested in this talk were, number one, deep meditation, because the book that I used for this whole month was a book by a woman named Mary O'Malley, a fabulous book called
Oh,
"What's in the
yes.
Way." What's in the way is the
Is
way.
the way. Yes, yeah, great
Fabulous
book.
book. And frankly, if you want to start your journey of waking up, you could do nothing better than to buy that book and do the practices that are in that book. But deep meditation of slowing down or quieting what we call the storyteller in our head that's constantly commenting on what's going on from its own hypnosis, from its own conditioning, to slow that down, to quiet that down, so that then we can hear that other voice, that still small voice within us that is the voice of our authenticity. And so that's the value of meditation. And most of us start to judge or evaluate, how am I doing at meditation? It's not, don't do that.
It's a
You're
trap.
not there. You're not there to perform meditation well.
Right.
It's just to simply get in touch with that voice that's not the storyteller, that's not the commentator. I referenced it earlier when I said, not the one writing your Sunday talk,
Right.
but,
Yeah.
but the one that really listening to, who am I, David? Who are you, Michelle? Who are you, this, whoever you are listening to this? Who are you really? So that practice of meditation. The other practice was compassionate curiosity. And so that's the questioning everything, but not from an angry, rip it all apart point of view, but from a compassionate.
Yeah.
What am I believing here?
Yeah. What does this mean?
What does this
am I
mean? When I got that diagnosis of diabetes, I could have made it mean a whole lot of things. I had somebody who came up to me who told me that I was too fat, and that was why I had diabetes, and I had done it wrong, And one of the things I appreciate about the medical team that I was working with was they said, you didn't cause your diabetes.
Right.
And they said it's an inherited, genetic sort of thing, Now I believe that we cause that at a level of consciousness, but not as in a not as in a punitive or judging sort of way. It's just like, look what I caused here,
Yeah.
And I always say, if I caused it, I can uncause it.
That's right. That's right.
New.
That's what I want the audience to hear. I want everybody to catch that. If I caused it, I can uncause it.
Yeah.
A little awkward, but yes.
That's like all the good news, bad news of our teaching is, yes, you did create that condition, but don't beat yourself up about it or feel terrible. It's like, oh, wow, look at that. I can create something new.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So those are two of the practices, and then the reframe that we just talked about. What is the meaning that I made about this?
Yes. And I want to offer, because well, for over a year I did a show on New Thought Media, and as the Jersey Girl Wisdom Show, and everything about me is Rev Jersey Girl, and people are always very amused by that. But the thing I like about that is this thing about in New Jersey, one of the qualities about a couple of qualities that I enjoy I don't enjoy all the qualities, but I enjoy my loyalty. I am loyal as a dog.
Hmm.
Once I'm on your side, I'm yours until you really, really cause me not to be. I'm yours.
Hmm.
But the other thing is our ability to be straight, to be straight on with something and to face it, you know.
Hmm.
And we're not your Southern belles. Where we're like, oh, bless your heart. We're like, oh yeah, go yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so here's the thing, and I'm just framing this out. One of the things I would encourage the listeners to also do, encourage you if you're listening to do, is when you catch something that is the hypnosis, when you recognize a pattern, have for yourself a statement that almost jars you out of the hypnosis in the
Yes.
moment. For
Yes.
me, it's and I was just talking to a friend about this. My statement is, oh, hell no.
Hmm.
Because for me that kind of makes me feel powerful
Hmm.
when, if you say to me, well, you're just too old for this, right? And if you were to say that, and believe me, I don't think that well on this show at this age, in a young person's profession, right? And then I think to myself, oh hell no.
Hmm.
What I lack in youth, I make up in experience and wisdom.
Wisdom. Yes.
So
Yes.
but find yourself a statement, a response, and all it does at the moment, it just stops it in the moment.
Yes.
It's like it's nipping it in the bud in that particular moment, and then you can go back and
Yes.
bring it to your meditation and bring it to the reframing and what was the third thing you said? Reframing, meditation.
Compassionate curiosity.
Yeah, and yes. So when you say something, then you get to say to yourself, wow, why do I believe that? Or it could be, why am I giving power to that?
Right.
And if you think about placebo and
Hmm.
nocebo, right?
Hmm.
So if you tell me something wonderful, well, that's a placebo. But the nocebo is the unconscious stuff we adopt from parents and family and the
And the culture
culture.
around us. Yeah.
Yes. So you want to catch the nocebos that are going on around you, question them, and
Yes.
take your power back.
Yes.
Take your power back. Because one thing we don't believe in the science of mind is suffering,
Right.
right? I mean, we might suffer sometimes,
Right.
suffering happens, but we don't believe that that's we're not ordained. We're not ordained to suffer. Big
No.
difference. Big
No.
difference.
Um, so I want to also speak to the whole month's title, Speaking Truth to Circumstances, which is circum around us and that which is standing around us. And so often we're busy trying to change the screen out there. But the circumstances, that's which is standing around us, were created by our consciousness, oftentimes unconsciously, but they're
Unconscious.
created, we are mentally, if you will, creating them mentally and emotionally. And physically, but through that consciousness. And so, as we shift our consciousness, there's the old story of in the early cowboy camps when still silent movies first came in. Once in a while, somebody would stand up and try and shoot the villain on the screen with a gun,
Oh.
and of course, it had no
Is that
effect
true?
on the movie. I've heard that as a story. I have no idea
Oh,
if
okay.
it's
That
actually
what a
true.
riot. I
But
could
it's an
understand
example of what
someone
we
being,
oftentimes try to do is we're trying to shoot the
yeah,
circumstance, the screen out there, when that's not what's causing it.
right, right. I
We go into
love
a movie and we're watching a bunch of pixels on a screen or light flashing on a screen, but it's not the reality, but we confuse it as reality. I mean, we've gotten really good with movies to where we can be immersed in IMAX 3D surround sound, just to get into that. And yet it's not real. And when we can wake up from that and realize our life is like that,
mm-hmm.
and all we have to do is change what's the movie I'm showing instead of the horror movie or the scary movie or the sad
Right.
movie. What is it that I want to have? The high drama trauma movie. It's like, what do I want to show instead?
Yeah,
And so to
beautiful.
play with that. So that's the speaking truth to circumstance. That's which is standing around
Yeah,
us.
right,
So
right.
moving on. This coming week is standing on Shiva, and there's that comes from the image of the goddess Kali, who's this warrior goddess who was created out of Durga, the goddess of compassion, to slay the demons that were battling with the gods and starting to win. But she gets into a killing frenzy, and after she slays all the demons, she starts killing off gods too. And so Shiva, who's the god of truth and the destroyer of illusion, throws himself under her feet to ground her back into truth, ground her back into reality, to get her out of this frenzy. And so oftentimes we get caught up in a frenzy of things, and we're running around, the famous phrase, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's you and I were talking a little bit before the show of getting rid of all old white men, sort of thing. And it's just like, there's, yes, there's a lot of that needs to go, but there's some of it that is really beneficial and helpful, and a wisdom that needs to be honored.
By the way, just a quick digress, because we do this all the time.
Yes.
You know where that statement comes from, right?
Throwing the baby out with the bathwater?
Throwing the baby out. Yeah. It came because when people used to only have bathing tubs,
right?
And every whole family would share, and the first person that got in was the father, and then all the everybody after that, and the water would get so dirty. The saying was, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," because the water was so dirty.
Yeah, and the baby was so small you might not see it.
So I digress, but go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's fine. I love that. So that's the standing on Shiva, the standing on a deeper sense of truth to remind us of who we are.
How many times do you, as a minister and when you were a practitioner, and you're a practitioner now, do prayer work just to ground somebody? Right?
Oh, yeah.
I still ask for that. I call it my prayer partner and say, I just need you to ground me.
Yes.
So that's I
was in a marriage that was falling apart in a really ugly way, and my wife and her sister and her mother were all just dumping on me every detail. It's like, if I laughed at a commercial, it's like, oh, as a minister, you shouldn't laugh at that commercial. It's sort of thing, in the privacy of my own home. And I was asked by the minister of the local church to do the opening prayer, and I was like in terror because I knew I would be just picked apart by them. And all of a sudden I woke up and I went, because I came out of CSL Seattle, which at the time was a 1,400 person on Sunday church. And it's just like, I used to do prayers there, the Sunday prayer for, 350, 450 people at a time, got lots of compliments on my prayer. It's like, so it's like it was enough to wake me up out of that. And I called my two prayer partners up in Seattle. And I said, help me, because I've forgotten who I am.
Yes.
And sometimes
thank you for saying that.
That's such an important process because we all forget, and that's why we lean into each other. That's why we do spirituality and community instead of just sitting on the internet and listening to people talk. We don't get the reflection and we don't get the support if we just do that. And so doing it in community. When I first moved here, I was my Social Security kicked in, and I realized I could buy the Mazda Miata that I had wanted for 25 years. And so I went with a friend of mine to check one out, and and I was kind of in the process of, I just want to look at it. I want to visualize it. I want to get the idea in my mind. I want to pray about it. I want to journal on why I can't have it. I don't want to do anything but actually buy the thing, right? And so I was with a friend of mine who was in Practice Studies at the time, and we were hanging out we were running a few errands afterwards. I kept saying something about, something to the lines of, I can't afford this, which was not true. But it was stuck in my mind. It was the thing. And I remember
you were hypnotized.
I was hypnotized. I hypnotized myself. Right. And so she turns around in the car and looks right at me and she goes, do you want to continue to affirm that? I went, no.
That's a good friend. That's a good friend.
She's a very good friend. She still is a good friend.
Yeah.
And it was funny because that night I was teaching a class and she was in it. And I told that story and I said, and what I was saying was, and I couldn't remember the phrase.
Oh.
And so I looked at her and I said, what was it that I was saying? And she looked at me and I could see her. She was blank also. It's like she couldn't remember the phrase. It had gone so dissolved out of consciousness that neither one of us could even remember what it was. To this day, I don't remember exactly what it was.
It's funny because a number of years ago now, I had bad cars for a long time. And then I just got to the point and I'm like, I don't care anymore. I need a car that I can depend upon. So I chose to lease a car. Now, my son, my third son, he's an accountant. And so he hates that I lease cars for all the right. He's right. He's 1000% right. Leasing is a dumb thing to do when for financial reasons, but I wanted a car that would be dependable. And we started out first by looking at these little cars, these little, like a Chevy, is it Cruise? I don't know, these little, and then we looked at this and we looked at that, and then I saw the car. We went into an office. It was a weird situation, but we wound up in a Hyundai of a showroom, and they were showing me a Tucson, and which I thought at that point that was going to be beyond my budget. And I looked at the guy, and he says, "Well, is this what you're looking at?" But next to it was the Santa Fe, which is the next size up.
Yes.
I went, "No, I really want that,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I went home with.
Mm-hmm.
But when I entered, I had to adjust my thinking to allow for the fact that I could afford. So we have to, and I'm not saying I'm not encouraging anyone to buy beyond your means. That's not a responsible thing to do. But it was responsible because I was capable of it. But I went in there thinking Chevy, left there with a large vehicle that I could have my grandchildren in and the car seats in.
Right.
So it's about stretching what you think you know and not believing what you think you know. It's about questioning everything, like you've said.
Yes. And you brought up something, it might make sense over on this area. So financially, it doesn't make sense to lease, but it gives you so much more here.
Peace of mind.
It gives peace of mind, which is far more important. People will spend lots of money on peace of mind. They'll spend thousands of dollars to go on a weekend retreat just for peace of mind. You know,
right. I have since bought the car out. By the way, I now own it, and I'm buying. So I have payments, which is I would have liked to pay for it, but I'm paying payments. But so my son's giving me his thumbs up now.
Good.
He's young, but he has good financial senses about him. Yeah, which is good. For him.
Yes. So then we move into the Wise Warrior. Which is week 4, and that's to just simply. I have a statement in there that the wise warrior, when they walk into the bar of life, nobody picks a fight with them because their presence alone is enough. And so to be so deeply rooted in consciousness that we don't have to make war. Because things will shift.
Yes.
As they are.
Yeah.
When I bought that car. I ordered it, and I do have that Miata these days, still do, and still love it every day. But I wanted to drive to the very first of the SOAR retreats that CSLs were doing, which was in my neighborhood in Skamania, Washington.
I was there.
We're about 3 hours away, and so I wanted to show up my bright red, new Miata fastback, and wow all my friends and ministers and stuff like that. And so they had ordered one to be built in Japan, and they were doing their next batch beginning the 1st of July. And SOAR was in the 3rd week of August. And, I thought this would be great. The week before, the guy who sold me the car, the salesperson, who was actually the IT manager at the Mazda dealership, called me up and said, "I'm sorry, the car is not going to be ready in time." He says, "It's not. It's, they haven't even started building it. I've got the paperwork of all the cars they're building, and I had mine set up a certain way." And he said, "Your car isn't there." That was on a Thursday. On the Friday, the very next day, he calls me up and he goes, "I have no idea how this happened." And that to me is instantly, it's like, okay, God's at work here. Spirit's at work. He says, "But your car is sitting on the dock in Tacoma, which is about 30 minutes north. It's the port north of Olympia here." And he says, "And we're not even waiting for the transport to bring it down. We sent a guy up to get it. You can come by tomorrow, Saturday morning, and pick it up."
Oh, I love this story.
I still don't understand this because it still doesn't show up anywhere on the records, but it's there.
I hope y'all listening.
Saturday morning and the following Thursday, I drove it to SOAR,
I hope you all are listening. Don't believe what's in front of you.
Yes.
Don't believe what's in front of your eyes. Go beyond it, because metaphysics says to go beyond the physical. And
Yeah.
the way we create the life that we live out loud to live is
Yes.
by not being continuously hypnotized.
Yes.
Yeah, but I see here our Kathy Duca, she says, listening hard. Yes, we have to deny. And sometimes yes, we get diagnoses and we have things that happen, but we don't have to give power to it.
Yes.
We deal with it in the world of form. We, I would say pray around and incorporate the doctor, the nurses, incorporate everyone
Yes.
into the spirituality, but don't give your power to it.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's such a great story.
Recognize there's more going on than what seems to be happening on the surface.
Yes. So beautiful. So we are coming down to our wind-up time, and I want to just do a couple of announcements here, and one of them in the show notes, I'll make sure that Reverend Allen that he sends out. Please, you can always contact us at hello@livingoutloud.show, and please do. We love to hear from you. But go to the website and subscribe. We would love for you to subscribe. We'd like to up our numbers, as quick as we can. We do believe that we're delivering pragmatic things. So subscribe and share with your friends and invite them to subscribe. Reverend Allen, who's not with us today, my beloved friend and cohort, he is away, but he is at the Center for Spiritual Living, Concordia CSL actually. And he is newthoughtlife.com, and he's beginning to blog more often. So you definitely want to register for that. For me, this is my education nonprofit, Planned Happiness Institute. And if you want to get to me, like I said, Rev Jersey Girl, I got that everywhere. So you can find me at Rev Jersey Girl. One of the things, oh, darn, I didn't point out, we usually like to, there is the magazine. Oh, I'm going to show you right now. So you can always, and this is, these are written by ministers, practitioners, and lay people with stories and the themes. And so the show, the themes, the Sundays at your local communities, and find one near you, or go online and be online for it. But all of the things we're talking about is supported in this magazine, and it's a great thing to have on your table. And give a subscription away to a friend. Please do that. And
I first got into this movement in 1988. That's the first thing I did, was subscribe to that magazine.
Okay.
And it was wonderful for daily guides and just for inspiration and feeding myself something healthy.
Yes, beautiful. And if you want to contact Reverend David, this is his email, and he's at cslolympia.org, so you can get him there. There was the book, What's in the Way is the Way. Mm-hmm. I will make sure that Reverend Allen has that book, and he puts it in the show notes, because he likes to make sure that you have everything that we've discussed, on the podcast. And we are here weekly. We are here to laugh. We are here to cry. We are here to grow. We are here to inspire and encourage you. And so I do hope you respond and return to us on a weekly basis, because this isn't for us, it's for you. Although I benefit greatly, it's for you. Mm-hmm. David, I so thank you. I so thank you. It was a delight. When Alan first asked me about the show and he invited me to do it, he said an hour long. I'm like, an hour? How will we fill an hour? I'm usually a woman.
You want to go for another half hour?
What?
So do you want to go for another half hour? Because
oh my God. Oh my God, that is so true. We should do a marathon one time. Anyway, I'm gonna pray us out. I thank you for being here, and to all of our our listeners and our subscribers, we thank you, because we are here for you, and we are here because of you. So now maybe just join me in consciousness as we know together right now. I speak this word for every subscriber and listener. I speak it from the high and holy place of the intelligence of the One. And I recognize right now that there is an expansion of consciousness happening for each of us. There is an expansion and an uplifting and a rising up, that a place where we embrace our empowerment, our self-love, and ride off literally into the sunset, feeling ready for life, to embrace the goodness, the grace, and the beauty of life. Let us each feel celebrated because of this word, and feel seen because of this word, and feel loved because of this word. With a bounty of gratitude, I do release this word to love and to law, and I accept it as so in this here and now moment. And so it is.
So it is.
Bless you all. Thank you. And David, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you at Asilomar. And
Yes.
folks, if you don't know what Asilomar is, go to csl.org and look it up. It's a wonderful, wonderful retreat. Be well.
Be well. Thank you.
Now you're welcome. Thank you.